welcome to Come Heal Yourself with Monica Goyle on OMTimes Radio. Monica is a spiritual counselor and healer with a life purpose to put people in touch with their innate healing abilities, empowering them to live a life full of joy, love, peace, and abundance. Through this show, you'll learn to heal every aspect of your life by connecting to your higher self. And now your host, Monica Goyle.
Yourself. Welcome to our show today. Before we start, I have few questions to ask. Are you highly sensitive, creative, and empathetic? Do you feel out of place? Do you feel disempowered and disconnected in this world? This is what spiritual counselor and coach Yol Swan kept asking herself through more than 30 years, exploring the psychological and spiritual aspects of the mind. And then she wrote a book when she got her answers. And we welcome her tonight. Welcome, Yol.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming to our show. We are honored to have you and would love to learn all about your journey and your new book, Indigo Journals.
Oh, it's my pleasure being here.
Awesome. So you'll tell us about your journey and what led to the book.
Well, I felt out of place, different most of my life. And at some point, I decided to figure out what was wrong with me, because I felt kind of flawed, and why my relationships were different, why I saw things differently. You know, I perceived life as energy and saw things that other people didn't see, and also felt things that other people didn't seem to feel or even care about. So at some point, I started psychotherapy, and that led me into a deeper exploration of consciousness during a 3-year personal retreat in almost complete isolation, where I really started delving deeply into the mind, consciousness, and understanding how they work and how energy also works. And when it was time for me to get out of that personal retreat and go back into the world, I met enlightened teachers and embarked on a spiritual path. So I just continue my self-exploration and understanding, study of all this.
So how exactly, Yol, you felt? Like, I'm sure a lot of our listeners want to know more, and, a lot of us can relate with this feeling out of place. But what did you exactly feel? And why? I mean, I'm sure when you went for your personal retreat and, there was this deeper search, like to find out your purpose here and why you feel so out of place here. So what was it exactly that was so painful and so different for you?
Well, first of all, I felt very sensitive emotionally. My life on the outside wasn't too bad, but internally, I felt very easily hurt, and the lack of love that I witnessed everywhere in the world was very painful. Like I did not understand the world; it didn't make sense to me. The mind games that people play with each other didn't make sense to me at all. I didn't understand it. And so it seemed that everybody had a thicker skin and they didn't really care about all this stuff. But to me, it was like, how can we accept all this? How can we live like this? You know, there's got to be something that can be done. There's got to be something that I can do, contribute. But I need to understand if it's just that I am flawed or a little bit crazy because I see things that people do not see, and I perceive energy that people don't care about.
Yeah.
Or what, what is motivating me to feel like this? I just was seeking the truth, really, to understand myself.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, of course, I got a lot, a much deeper understanding of energy, consciousness, and how it weaves our perception, the fabric of our lives, and creates everything, through our experience.
And I mean, I'm sure it's a relief for a lot of our listeners to know that they are not alone feeling like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the purposes of the book, is
Yes.
to help the sensitive, empathic, creative visionaries recognize themselves and understand that they're feminine souls. They're not flawed. They're not crazy. Mm-hmm. They're just a lot more receptive and wired a little differently. And that's why we feel that way. But we're here for a purpose, and that the same things that make us feel out of place are our greatest qualities and what we're here to contribute.
Sure. That's so awesome to know that, it's not unusual to be like that. And there are a lot of souls who are facing the same. And
yes, especially now that the world has become so extremely masculine, and we're feeling this internal tug of war because we are supposed to behave and accept and, do things a certain way to function in the world and have the sense that we fit in somehow. But at the same time, on a deeper level, on a deep spiritual level, we are wired differently. We're wired to go in the opposite direction. So this creates a lot of emotional turmoil.
Yeah. So tell us a little more about, what do you mean by indigo? What does that term mean?
Indigos, well, first of all, they were labeled like this during the 70s, indigo children, as a special breed of souls with certain qualities. They were highly creative and intuitive and very smart. And so the media portrayed them as special group of kids. But what I found out, through realizing that I was an indigo, and then working with a lot of people and really understanding that my whole purpose was to really understand what it means to be a feminine soul and an indigo adult in this world, that it's not a generation. Indigos come in all ages and personalities. And so I can tell you, the main features that they share with all feminine souls are that they're very receptive and intuitive and sensitive and empathic and compassionate. Those are feminine qualities, very connected to animals, to the earth, to nature, drawn to the spiritual and the metaphysical, either when they're young or later on, there's this big draw, big pull there. And very creative, because, creative qualities being creative is a quality of the feminine.
Feminine, yeah.
And so those are specific features of all feminine souls. They all share that. And indigos have certain masculine qualities that makes us more of a warrior type of soul. And so we are driven by a sense of purpose. We have to have a purpose. We keep seeking that. We're not happy. We're not satisfied until we find that purpose. And of course, those can be small purposes and big purposes, and of course are eventually our soul purpose. But if we don't have that, we get really down, really depressed. We disconnect. We don't want to be part of this. We also have very strong freedom-seeking nature, so we can't be controlled or dominated, and we just do not accept the manipulation. And because we're receptive and intuitive, we see those things. We see those games. We see, how guilt and fear have become the emotional currencies in the world, and how everything is permeated by that, and we don't accept that. So we can be very rebellious and very resentful as well, very angry, because our inner vision does not match what we observe in the world. So we are feminine souls, essentially, sensitive, empathic, and compassionate. We actually can put ourselves at arm's harm, even just to protect those who can't defend themselves. But we need to have a purpose, a sense that we're here for a purpose. Otherwise, we feel very disconnected, out of place, and a lot of indigos just want to, get depressed and want to die because this world does not make sense, and we feel out of place, completely out of place. I don't know how many indigos have said to me, and I felt like that myself. Like, I'm just yearning to go home. Yeah, where is home? Because this is not it, and it's just that sense of being misfits. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So there is a purpose. They are being sent here.
Oh yeah, everybody has a purpose, of course, and on a soul level, on a spiritual level, each soul has specific function. Just like the cells in the body, they have specific attributes and functions that distinguish each of them from other cell types, but they still have to work together, as an organism. Yeah. Well, every soul emerges from infinite source with clear qualities and guidelines for its direction and purpose as well. And so indigos came here, and we've been here for a very long time, planting seeds of change, because we are protectors. We protect nature. That's our main purpose, to protect the earth. So when the earth has been devastated, hurt, exploited, and on the brink of destruction, we suffer deeply.
And we will take just a short break here and be right back.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she's feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back, Yol.
Hi.
So we were talking about the soul types, So, what are the main differences between the soul types you describe in your feminine and masculine soul spectrum?
Well, like I was saying, there's a certain, function and features and guidelines, qualities of each soul. And these arise from infinite consciousness. So when infinite consciousness is just pure consciousness, it's neutral. It's like the perfect blend or perfect integration of feminine and masculine. Mm-hmm. But to create the universe, and to create everything, it has to separate. So it creates this little ripple, if you will. And so it separates into these two principles, the feminine and the masculine. So each soul either comes from one or the other. So it's gonna have an inherent, deeply rooted or wiring, if you will, that is gonna tend towards being receptive, the feminine, or more action-oriented, which is the masculine. And of course, each soul also has those qualities within itself. We all have masculine and feminine layers, right? So the soul spectrum that I discover basically describes the main soul types that we see on the planet today. And these are soul types that were meant to bring in a masculine cycle, a masculine cosmic cycle. That's why we've come to this extreme of masculinity, because now we've reached the end, or we're reaching the end of that cycle within a much bigger cycle, which is the dark cycle, the Kali Yuga. So we've reached the end of that masculine cycle, and we're going into a feminine cycle now. And so, but for us to bring in this masculine cycle, we needed specific types of souls that would support that. Otherwise it wouldn't happen. And of course, consciousness does not make mistakes. It's just, its own nature unfolds and evolves the way and expands the way it does. So many of the feminine souls that came to participate in this are kind of wounded or easily wounded types of souls, and somewhat passive. And so they're either the mother archetype, as I'm talking about souls, of course. So this is a deep yearning, a deep function here, not just because we're women and we want to have babies. It's a deeper, much deeper tendency on a spiritual level. And of course, we had the wife, the partner, right? The lover, all the different archetypes that we see on the planet today. Yeah. And on the masculine, of course, we go from the more kind of productive, creative type to the masculine that takes charge and takes control, and the more politically oriented, if you will. Although, like I said, it's on a spiritual level. It's not gender based. Anybody can go in one direction or another. And when I say this, I mean that even though we each have to experience everything, to evolve and expand consciousness, so that we take on different roles at different times and we reincarnate, and sometimes we're men, sometimes we're women, sometimes we're poor, rich, and so on, because we want to experience the whole spectrum of what it means to be human. On a deep, deep level, we're always going to have the tendency towards, our own soul archetype. And that means have that yearning for that, even though we may be experiencing something different. And at the extreme of the masculine, we have what I call martial souls, which have been in control of the planet for a very long time. Those were the ones leading this cycle. And of course, they're very war oriented, not connected to that feminine, not connected to the receptive and sensitive or intuitive, very rational, very compartmentalized, that are, trying to militarize the world, militarize everything, education, work, the workplace, even relationships, of course, politics, but I'm not going to go there. And so we have those extremes. On the extreme of the feminine, we have these wonderful souls that are receptive, that do not participate in the world. They're those highly enlightened beings that are just pure vehicles of love and light, but they do not participate.
Right.
And everything in between. And the indigo archetype is sort of in the middle of the spectrum, because it's very feminine. So it's at the end of the feminine, when the feminine starts moving into the masculine, but has some masculine qualities. And so the book really encourages all feminine souls to embrace this indigo archetype, so that we can utilize the excess masculinity and bring in more of our feminine, nurture our feminine qualities to create balance. And that's what we're all experiencing right now, this calling from the feminine to be restored on the planet and bring that balance, to bring in, a feminine cycle. And of course, that's just one aspect, the feminine cycle. There's also a planetary cycle, which is the age of Aquarius, and that also is feminine in nature, because it's about community, it's about oneness, it's about recognizing that we're all connected, we're all the same. These are very interesting times, for sure.
And so, what do you mean by sense of otherness?
Well, I speak in the book about the sense of otherness is one aspect of the ego. It's the masculine aspect of ego, because everything has masculine and feminine. When I discovered that soul spectrum, it was because things finally, after years and years of seeking, started making sense. If we start seeing things from the feminine and masculine and how they're continuously interacting in this eternal interplay, then things make much more sense than if we just think more neutrally, like neutral souls or neutral awareness or neutral action. So the ego, it has also two different aspects, from a spiritual perspective, not the psychological perspective, but it has the feminine aspect, which is very internal. It's the sense, what I call the sense of self, which makes us experience things individually and have our own soul signature, our own mark, our own brand, if you will, that we leave in everything we do, in everything we say, and how we perceive things, right? Yeah. And that connects us to our inner voice, which in turn connects us to the deeper aspects of the soul and then our self, which is the spark of consciousness at the core of the soul. And then the sense of otherness is the masculine aspect. It's what we acquire growing up through the interaction with others, in particular authority figures like our parents, teachers, older siblings, and so on. And so because we live in such a dysfunctional world, this sense of otherness has become very strong, overly, overpowering the sense of self, because nobody guides you when you're a kid to really connect to yourself and understand yourself and delve deeper into who you are and what you want. You just have to follow directions and follow what they're saying, right? So it becomes a very strong sense of who we are. That's why I call it a sense, because it's not specific voices or figures, it's all of it. It embraces the dynamics between the authority figures that we observe, the dynamics between us and them, and everyone else outside of ourselves. That's why it's the others. And so we internalize all that growing up, And the sense of otherness becomes like a coat that you put on and then you forget you're wearing. But it carries all your patterns, all your beliefs, all the stuff that you've internalized. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you had to internalize that because you chose those specific circumstances to be born and work through the issues that you're here to work through. And so what it does is basically it becomes an inner bully, and it keeps you in the past. It's always trying to pull you to that time, emotionally speaking, when you were internalizing all those issues and those dynamics and those beliefs and those values that we are here to break free from. We're here to, to leave our own mark, our own voice, our own soul signature in what we do. So it's become a bully and taken over. And the process of spiritual and personal growth is precisely to strengthen that sense of self and quiet down the sense of otherness so that it goes back to its natural original function, which is to support us. That's the function of the masculine, to provide that support and structure and strength, discipline that keeps us going, keeps us moving. But when it takes over and it's overpowering, of course, then it's very crushing, and it makes us feel that we have no power, we have no no voice in the world.
That's so true. So I know in your book, you said that we disconnected from the divine feminine and sunk into third dimension during the civilization of Atlantis. And I guess we will talk more about this when we come back after this short break.
Okay.
So stay tuned with us.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Vibe Nation Radio is brought to you by Carrie Turcotte and Dean Thomas. Each week we bring a refreshing outlook to lifting the veils of illusion that occur in our daily lives. We will share our own learnings and personal experience that allow others to understand who they truly are.
At the end of each show, Carrie will be tapping into the listeners' energies just to give an idea of what to expect for the week ahead. So join us each Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and together we will discover the inner keys that will unlock the true you.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back here. So tell us about how you discovered that. Like, how did you find out about that?
Well, throughout my life, I got visions and memories of things. I have the ability to kind of look into the past. Mm-hmm. And so even when I was a teenager, I would get messages that I would write on my journals. And that's why the book is called the Indigo Journals, because I share some of those entries. And so I would just kind of collect the information, but it didn't really make much sense to me until many, many years later, during a painful divorce, when I was, going through the grieving process and really tapping into the wounded feminine. It was not just me and my personal story, my personal drama, but it was really tapping into what was going on a deeper level on the planet. And I started having these memories of Atlantis again and kind of connecting the dots of all the visions and all the information, all the messages that I had received throughout my life. And so I started putting all that puzzle together. And that's when I also discovered the feminine, masculine soul spectrum. And so the memories were about, the rebellion led by these martial souls that I was talking about earlier, as we were moving into a masculine cycle. And a masculine and a dark cycle was the same thing, at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so it was sort of, for us feminine souls and indigos, we felt there was like a rite of passage, because what the rebellion promised was that we would take charge of the planet, we would take charge of this experiment, and we would sort of, be the ones leading everything. And so we started disconnecting from other planets and from, the Federation we were part of, and the ones who were really in charge of everything, let's say I call them higher masters, let us do that. Like parents let their kids learn on their own. Kind of, so they let us do that. And in the process, of course, we didn't realize that these martial souls were very intent on controlling everything and controlling the mind and controlling our energy for their own purposes, which was experimentation. They still doing that. We can still see that out there in the world. They still experiment, through food, chemicals and water and food and the air, genetically modified stuff. They're still doing it's the same soul types. And so at some point they kind of went overboard and they lost control of the energy and everything started just blowing up. And at the same time, because we were moving into a new cosmic cycle, the planetary conditions were such that we sort of disconnected from the feminine, the feminine, the lunar energies. And because of the excessive experimentation with energy, there was a crack in the under layers of the earth, and we sank into third dimension. And so we were we were bound by our own karma, and so we had to come back and try to clean up the mess, and that's what we've been trying to do for the past 10,000 years or so. And now we're moving back into the previous dimension, which was fifth dimension. We're moving back there and turning around through this new cosmic cycle. But so it makes it very significant in the sense that we are reconnecting, restoring the divine feminine, and that's what personal and spiritual transformation is all about. Is about tapping into the deepest spiritual layers of the soul, which are feminine, to the intelligence of the heart, and really embrace that, empower that, which has been very wounded, very squelched, and felt very powerless for so long. So it's almost like, okay, we need to stop this prisoner mentality and take charge, self-empower, and embrace who we are fully.
But Yol, how would that happen? Like, I mean, you mentioned all of us feminine souls, we get into depression and we don't feel at home. So, I mean, I know you actually listened to your calling and went deeper and discovered. But when so many feminine souls are going through that, how is it even possible to make this happen?
Well, the process, I would say, is the process of self-transformation is what I guide them through the book through. So it's my spiritual healing system, of energy management and self-exploration that I've gone through, that I've experienced, and not just after I started, seeing clients or anything like that. It's something that I've been doing throughout my life just to learn to navigate the world and remain somewhat sane. So it's the understanding that if you manage your energy, you become aware of your energy, how you're using that energy, what motivates the things that you do, that you think, that you feel, which is energy, right? It's that what is the charge behind that? And you start consciously aligning your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energies, your layers, then you become more whole, more empowered, stronger in who you are. But it is a process of self-awareness because the feminine has been so wounded.
Yes. Healing
the feminine soul requires great self-discipline, mental discipline to really pay attention to who you are, what you're doing, why you do things, great honesty, radical honesty. So we shadow all these illusions and the self-images that we've created and really honor who we are and how we feel without judgment. And self-awareness, of course, and what I consider very important for feminine souls, which is creative focus, so that we decide where we're going to channel our energy, how we're going to use it, how we're going to create the life that we want, because our life is our own personal movie. So we have that creative power of the feminine, but we haven't been aware of it. And this is the time to really become aware of, okay, what I think makes me feel what I feel, and what I feel makes me do things that I do, and make all those connections and really start aligning, becoming more cohesive in what we feel, do, think, and desire, so that we can channel our creative energy to create the life that we want and to experience life differently, as opposed to remaining in the victimhood mentality, which is a prison-like mentality. Yeah. It's this sinking into third dimension made us all experience the planet as a prison planet because we didn't know how to get out of this third dimension, right? And so instead of feeding that mentality, I'm a victim and life just happens, really tapping into a more solution-oriented, more open to receiving that power of the feminine, to tapping into the spiritual forces within us, to transcend that ego that wants to always be the owner and the director and judge and color things and separate things, right? And really understand that creative power and how we manifest our life and how it turns out to be has to do with the script that we're playing within ourselves, and that we have the power to change that. So it's really a process of looking within, being completely honest, become self-aware to unravel those patterns, that sense of otherness that we've internalized, and start really, being ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's okay. We don't have to judge. We don't have to make excuses. We don't have to apologize. We need to discover who we are and what we're here to do. And it requires great determination, of course, because the world is always pulling your attention and your energy in many different directions, but never inward. And it also requires a creative focus, so that you have something to anchor yourself in, so that you keep being in your own center, as opposed to just following what others do and say and believe what you're told. And it also requires great independence on many levels, because we have been conditioned and manipulated to believe that we are codependent, that we have to have someone to love us, to feel love, and to, that we have to be needed and be liked and be this and that. And instead of really looking at what we really want to be and who we want to be, how we want to express who we truly are, without always seeking validation and, trying to heal our wounds through others. That's what the sense of otherness keeps us trying to do, and it keeps us in the past. Because instead of healing our wounds ourselves and taking charge of our life ourselves, we're always looking outside for answers that can only be found within.
How true that is. And we will continue our discussion after a short break. So please stay with us.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Simone Milicis would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on OMTimes Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
the best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And we are back. Welcome back, everyone. We were talking about how the feminine souls that we are, how can we recognize our own power and own it and make the change that's so much needed.
Yes, because it's through our own transformation that we're going to transform the world.
Right.
This is a subtle revolution of the spirit we need to go through. So it's not like the typical revolutions that we've gone through that are masculine and external. Mm-hmm. And, we rally up the masses and, demand change and we change things. And then without, really knowing how or understanding why, we just kind of go back to the same dynamics because we power changes hands, mm-hmm. but there is no real transformation. So the transformation that we're going through right now, that we need to go through, this is a spiritual revolution. And because it's subtle and invisible, it's unstoppable. And that's because we are moving into transitioning into different cycles, the planetary cycle and also the bigger cosmic cycle, which is, going to last at least another 10,000 years. So it is very important for all feminine souls to discover that inner power, that creative power that comes from the feminine. It's wired, within the soul. It's not something external. It's not something we need to, develop and learn and so on. It is within ourselves. And so what do we need to do to tap into that and discover it? First of all, we need to learn to look at ourselves, to be honest, to look within and really shed what's not who we are. So we let go of all those self-images, of all the dynamics and patterns that we internalized from mm-hmm. childhood on that were really not ours. These were things that we needed to internalize to understand mm-hmm. how the world works mm-hmm. and also to energize some of our own issues, the own issues that we individually came to work on. And it's through working through those that we discover who we really are, what we really want, and how we're meant to experience life and navigate our life to bring in change and the transformation that we're here to bring. It's almost like a cell in the body maybe gets affected by a virus or something, right? But once it recovers its health and its purpose, its function, it knows exactly where to go and what to do. So for us, the process is to remove those beliefs that are ancient beliefs about being powerless and codependent and not having any way to transform ourselves and our world, when we, in truth, we have that power. It's what all these excessively masculine souls have been trying to take away from us, and we actually have been willingly given away. And so it's time to stop doing that, setting clear boundaries, looking within, shedding all these illusions, these self-images that do not serve us, that we don't even resonate with anymore, and looking for that truth within ourselves, opening up to the divine feminine in any form. It doesn't have to be any specific form, because it's really about tapping into all the feminine aspects of ourselves, of our soul. And of course, the feminine is love, compassion, fluidity, flexibility, creativity. And so when we are focused and we nurture those aspects, we let go of all the other stuff that is not true to who we are. It's not what we're here to bring forth. But because the world is so excessively masculine, we do need certain masculine qualities as well. We need to balance those things because only feminine makes us a little too passive. And so we need to develop self-discipline and determination and discrimination, which are masculine qualities, to bring forth the feminine in this world the way it is right now. 5,000 years from now, it'll be different. But right now, that's what we need to do, to really become clear and focused and determined to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish, to finish the things that we start, to understand why we do the things that we do, what is the motivation behind what we're doing, and to integrate those two aspects. We develop intuitive wisdom that way. The intuitive part is the feminine, and the masculine is the wisdom part. We need to integrate those two to feel strong in the world the way it is now, and be able to bring forth more and more of the feminine.
Great. So, Yol, I think you also offer one-on-one spiritual healing for Indigo adults, and you have a specific program to help people master the different tools you provide in the book.
I have a variety of services that I offer, and you can learn more about that through my website, which is soulguidedcoach.com. And, I have spiritual counseling and conscious business coaching for spiritual entrepreneurs. I have an individual Indigo Soul Healing program, and I do energy healing as well. And I'm launching a group program this year, which is Unlock Your Hidden Power for Self-Healing, Abundance, and Joy, which is based on empowering the feminine and a lot of the tools that I provide in the book.
Awesome. That's wonderful.
So people can contact me through my website, soulguidedcoach.com. They can join my newsletter to stay in touch. And if they want to, learn more about the book and purchase the book, which is called The Indigo Journals, Spiritual Healing for Indigo Adults and Other Feminine Souls, they can go to theindigojournals.com or directly to Amazon. They can get that on print and as an ebook as well.
Wonderful. So tell us, we have just a few more minutes, but tell us about the main aspects of the step-by-step process you offer in your book to discover the life and soul purpose.
First of all, I start by guiding feminine souls. There's a lot of spiritual philosophy in the book and a lot of insight to understand where I'm coming from. I also share my journey so people can relate, maybe not to specific events, but definitely the way we perceive and feel about ourselves and the world. And so people can see where I'm coming from. And then the process of self-exploration and energy management, it basically follows the steps of being grounded in your body, grounded in the planet, because we tend to disconnect, in this masculine world. Everybody tends to just disconnect and go, either go for some kind of addiction or drug, or even just rationalize things and just go into the mental realm, which is masculine. And so we need to connect to our body, to connect to the earth, which is very feminine. This is a very feminine planet. And to manage our energy, to really understand what our creative energy is about, how we create this life movie that we are also participating in, and how to heal things, restore aspects of ourselves that we've left behind, and feel more complete, more wholesome, to direct the energy in the way that we really want, to heal the past, of course, because the past is that sense of otherness that's always bullying us and creating self-defeating patterns that prevent us from feeling empowered and moving forward with what we want to accomplish. And the past is not just our childhood, of course. There are past lives that play a part in understanding how they get reactivated, how we are basically, repeating the same things over and over, and how to break free from that. And to harness our inner power, how to connect to your soul, to connect to aspects that you've left behind, to connect to the divine feminine, so that you can put all the pieces of your life puzzle together and discover and fulfill your purpose, both your purpose here in the world, your life path, what you're here to accomplish, and of course your ultimate soul purpose that entails transcending the ego and reaching higher levels of consciousness.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Yol. We are so grateful, and I'm sure our friends will really benefit from your program, your knowledge, your book. And thank you again so much, everyone.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Namaste.
Namaste.